Well, hello everyone, and welcome to the Four Persons. Our guest tonight is Dave Murray, and we're still waiting. We're still working out the hookup with him. So bear with us for just a second. We'll be right with you as soon as we get Dave on. All right, let me try and bring him on now. Can you hear me? I'm still not getting any sound from you, Dave. Did you go into your sound settings and make sure it's recognizing the right microphone? It must not be recognizing your microphone in the lower right-hand corner of your computer in your sound settings, your inputs. Hot. I heard something for a second there. Try it again. No, nothing. Okay. Well, Dave continues to get that worked out. I'm going to go ahead and bring this screen up because this is one of the things that we're going to be discussing. He continues to work on getting his sound situation worked out. So, Dave, this is a picture of the Electoral College map, and it has the basically what are now the 7 battleground states. They're not the battleground states that there's a couple that you're used to not seeing, but current polls make them battleground states. First of all, I have eliminated. Let me see where my mouse is here. I have eliminated North Carolina and Georgia from the battleground states because current polls are putting those outside of the margin of error. Trump is safely ahead in Georgia and North Carolina. Those are no longer battleground states. The rest of these states are all within the margin of error, and that is Minnesota. I know that's a surprise. Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Nevada, Arizona, and now Virginia.
Can you hear me?
Gotcha. We got your audio now.
Right. Okay.
Okay. So Virginia is the newest battleground state. And I want to start off by talking about what a shocker that is and what a game changer that is. If you look at this map now, this current map would put the Republican, Trump, at 251, the Democrat, Biden, at 203. And as you know, 270 is what you need to get to the election. So you come down here and look, and you see this current configuration of 7 battlegrounds gives the Democrat Biden 5 different mathematical paths to victory, to 270, and it gives Trump 13 different paths to victory. But watch what happens if Trump turns Virginia. Look at this. Biden now has 1 path to victory by turning that one state. And what is that one path? Well, his one path to victory at that point now would be to sweep these 6 states. He needs all 6 of them. You heard right. All 6 he needs. Trump could win the election with any of them, even Nevada. So the current poll showing Biden and Trump tied at 42, and that's a very low number in Virginia. How big of a development is this, Dave, in your opinion?
I mean, yeah, it's huge. I mean, what happened in my state, I mean, I didn't go there personally, but in Wildwood, when Trump went there, it's my understanding that there was something like 80 to 100,000 people there. And that was probably one of the biggest turnouts he ever had. And we're talking New Jersey, which is bluer than blue.
A state that he won by what, 16 points in 2020?
Biden won, you mean?
Yeah.
Yes. Well, arguably over perhaps some fraudulent issues. Yes.
Well, the point that I'm trying to make, though, is that people need to understand the bigger picture here. Are Dave and I sitting here predicting that Trump is going to win New Jersey? No, we're not. But the latest polls that I saw coming out of New Jersey show the race at 5 points. 5 points in New Jersey. Now, the ramifications of that are just unbelievable. Because 5 points in June in New Jersey means the Democrats are now nervous. Okay? And what are some of the major media markets within the close vicinity of the state of New Jersey, Dave?
You mean like
two.
You mean like
radio and TV media markets? I can think of 2.
Well, I don't really watch TV all that much, hardly at all.
I know, but I'm just talking about 2 of the major media advertising markets in the country are in the vicinity of the state of New Jersey. You've got the New York market and you've got the Philadelphia market. Okay? Right. And they're 2 very expensive markets. All right? Well, if Biden gets nervous and has to start buying advertising in New York and or Philadelphia, that's big money. And it's big money that he can't spend in Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Minnesota, Arizona. I accidentally clicked it red. Nevada. Every dollar that Biden has to spend in New Jersey is a dollar that he can't spend somewhere else. And right now, Trump's method, his strategy is to widen the map and make Biden bleed in as many places as possible. And these are not the only places that really you have to consider to be very competitive. Right now, you could honestly say that Maine is very competitive. Maine could potentially become a battleground. Some recent polling is showing that New Hampshire is potentially very competitive, possible battleground state. Same with New Mexico. So as Trump broadens and broadens and broadens this map, now go down here and look. 15 paths for Trump to victory, only 4 for Biden. And I mean, and easily, if you add New Jersey to that mix, you know, it just gets worse and worse and worse. And now Trump is able to close the deal. Look how many opportunities he has to close the deal. He needs 6 electoral votes because a 269 tie would send it to the House of Representatives, and Trump would win because of House delegations. Well, look at how many ways he could win. He could win Maine and New Hampshire. That gives him the victory. He could win New Jersey. That gives him the victory. Pennsylvania would win it. Michigan would win it. Wisconsin would win it. Minnesota would win it. New Mexico and taking back the district in Nebraska would win it. Arizona would win it. Nevada would win it. So this ever widening of the map really spells big trouble for Biden. And honestly, Dave, this is not the position that they thought they were going to be in coming out of conviction. They thought this conviction was going to be a boost for them. Tell us why it wasn't.
As me and you briefly talked before, just off of the podcast thing, and just shared some of our thoughts. The whole conviction's basically a hoax. We see now Trump that, I got news feed coming through like my Instagram and stuff where he wants to do judicial reform, especially regarding discrimination. There's so much tied in that there's conflicts of interest because the judge's family is apparently getting money, like lots of money. It's just not like somebody buying them a cup of coffee. It's right. We're talking like into the millions of dollars, where this judge should have recused himself from the matter.
By the way,
that's the issue.
A correction on the ticker downstairs on the bottom. I forgot to update it. This is not the Catholic Can Apologetics show. Sorry to tell you. That's a different show. But the number there for you to call in, if you'd like to call in and be on this broadcast, you can use the number that is scrolling across the bottom of the ticker, and it's about to come here in just a second. And that number is 240-728-6531. Again, 240-728-6531. We'll put you on the air with that number. So, Dave, let's start with the case itself. Talk about why it was such a sham trial. You have much more legal experience than you probably want to at this point. Came about it the hard way. But talk about why the legal problems with this case and why it's pretty much a slam dunk to be overturned on appeal, and why the American people are seeing right through it. Walk us through some of the problems with this case.
Well, as I said before, there's a conflict of interest because the judge's family is getting, a substantial amount of money. That's an issue right in itself. I don't know how that's going to play out in the appellate division. If what they should do is automatically overturn it, just even based on the reason of that. But then you have the issue of that you have these people that are involved in real estate deals like Trump, that they're in a sense bargaining their real estate, trying to, get a dollar amount so they can borrow money and do business, right. Which apparently has just been the way of real estate, how it's been working throughout the country until we get to Trump. So, it's obvious that this has just become a political agenda to either stall, indict. It's like a smear campaign. And what's happening is you run the issue of basically fraud on the court. And there's kind of like two circumstances between fraud on the court, not to be mistaken with fraud upon the court, but both are essentially happening. So fraud on the court is something coming that influences the judiciary improperly, exterior of the case. So now we have, the donation of money to the judge's family, There's, I believe, the prosecutor's tied in somehow to the, or I think it's a prosecutor that has routinely tried to prosecute Trump in numerous cases and just failed. And this is just another, another attempt at it. Mm-hmm. So that's the fraud. That's the fraud on the court. The fraud upon the court is the result of all this, is when you have the judicial machinery is not able to act impartially with deciding these cases, with adjudicating them. And just based on that, that will call for a reversal and remand and to appoint the matter to a different venue. So without even going into specifics of anything or really needing to, that's like pretty damning on the judiciary. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's been 12-year judgments that have been set aside because of fraud on the court.
Dave, do you think this case is likely to be fast-tracked to the Supreme Court? That's question number one. And then question number two is, if they fast-track it, would they stay any possible sentence pending the appeals so that Trump would not be impeded from campaigning or anything like that by excessive fines or jail time or house arrest or what have you?
I think it's going to have to go to the upper courts. When I look at some of these cases, from the experience of just what my own experience was in looking at these cases, a lot of them don't really get resolved until they work their way up to either a circuit court level, or it goes to the Supreme Court, which involves a number of steps, expense, and for them to really look at the matter and decide on it. I can't live inside the mind of Trump's attorney. Could I picture them filing the appeal and then immediately after the appeal requesting a stay or a vacate of an order? I could picture them, doing something like that, like pending review, and going from there. I mean, I'm not a lawyer, but that's what I could picture them, them doing. Mm-hmm. But I think this is one of them things that might work its way up to the Supreme Court, because it's my understanding that we have a prima facie circumstance, which means at first sight, this might be one of the first or the first issue for this Supreme Court to maybe handle and decide on this factor, as far as if they're going to provide any kind of immunity to Trump over some circumstances, or just blatantly find out that prosecution acted in bad faith and came in with unclean hands to the matter and reprimand the attorneys. That's one thing that we don't see a lot in the judicial sect, is we don't see the correction and accountability being held to attorneys or judges. And that's something that we need to see, more of. I mean, by attorneys and judges themselves. I mean, you think about it. There's a number of cases that go before appellate divisions every year. And a number of and in those cases, judges are found to either demonstrate it biased or they erred or erred in a way. And you got to ask yourself, why isn't the appellate division writing out, ethics complaints to judicial committees on this? Why don't we see an onslaught of that happening? So there's definitely issues to, with this and regarding the one prosecutor who just continually is trying to prosecute Trump on whatever case. I mean, that's
Persecute.
or
Not
persecute.
even.
Yeah, that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's harassment. It's in a sense discriminating to Trump because it's kind of singling him out from the rest of the herd that's been doing the business like he has.
And let's be honest, it's election interference. It's absolute
Yeah.
election interference. So, Dave, you've got a firsthand bird's eye view. Do most of the American people have any idea how bad the court system is in this country?
No, not at all. I mean, going through me myself being involved in the family court still to this day. I'm going into a state appeal court. And at the same time, for the prior court, I'm pending review in the Third Circuit Court of Appeals right now. And I'm in the family. It's revolving around family cases. And what's happening in that is you won't see family court cases being talked about highly on the news. Really not at all. It's a subject that is blacklisted, and it's really not talked about by everyone, and I want to say everyone else, because you have people that are married, they're happily married, and they hear they hear about an issue in family court revolving a mother or a father, and they just there's just no attention paid to it. It's okay, well, that's an issue. Often I hear, well, maybe you just got a bad judge. Well, I've had like 6 or 7 bad judges. Like, what point? Oh, well, it's got to be you then. And you show them the document and you say, wait, that's illegal. How can they do this? So I said, that's my question too. So people do not have, on the scope of things, the magnitude that we don't have a justice system. When you look at family court situations, which bring in more money than all other courts combined in a year, there is, how do I say this? We don't have jury trials in family court. I think only 1 or 2 states in the whole U.S. offer a jury trial. Well, isn't it your 7th Amendment right, if there's a dispute regarding an amount over $20, to have a jury trial?
Supposedly.
Right. Well, when you walk out of a family court trial, you're losing into the thousands. I know one guy who is a high-profile case in New Jersey. He's got hit with like 50 or 60,000 a month in child support, 50 or same kind of numbers in alimony. He had to give the wife a 13,000 square foot mansion. He had to liquidate his other house. He came in, one of the father's rights meeting with an ankle bracelet that they had him, he was under house arrest because he couldn't afford to pay the bill. And here we have, the other parent was living in a mansion. But there's lots of cases like these. And, not only do we not have jury trials, you can go on New Jersey's website and watch a court hearing for criminal matters like drug abuse or anything like that every day. You cannot have a camera in the courtroom in family court. You can't even bring your own recorder in there. You got to request court audio from the court, and that's not even permissible. You got to buy the transcript.
and it's going to be redacted, right?
Well, some of the problems are, and you got to keep in mind, it's the state. You're either the ordinary person like us, a citizen, or you're on the government side. How many law enforcement officers have you ever heard of arresting a judge or a child protection agent?
Right.
It's like few and far between. There's one incident.
And now think about this. And if people, I want you to listen to what I have to say here because it's so important. And Dave, your experience in this situation has bore it out. People say, well, these people who prosecute crimes against children, they have to be able to do their job. They have to be able to carry out the uncomfortable investigations, and they have to be able to go in and do their job in good faith, and so they must be immune from prosecution. And on the surface, that all sounds good and well. But folks, listen. When you take a group of people, I don't care who they are. I don't care if they're clergy. I don't care if they're teachers. I don't care if they're Boy Scout leaders, butchers, bakers, or candlestick makers. You take a group of people, you give them unlimited, unfettered access to children, and couple that with immunity from prosecution. And what are you creating? You're creating a climate to invite people who want to harm children, people who have bad intentions. Because what is their dream? To have access to children, to be immune from prosecution. And it's not paranoia, Dave. Time and time and time again, family courts, Youth and Family Services, Division of Youth and Family Services, statewide, nationwide, have been caught connected to crimes against children and the larger problem of child trafficking. Am I exaggerating or am I speaking the truth?
No, absolutely not. And I'll say this now because my case is public in the Third Circuit. And I was public with these arguments in my recent case trial. Actually, I just went a few weeks ago and testified on May 16th on the Judicial Committee hearing against the trial judge for him being reappointed. And it was the largest personal, that I've seen, the largest personal corruption from the government that I've ever witnessed. Here I walked into the annex building in Trenton, was I believe on the first floor, large room, almost like the size of a gym. There was state troopers there. There was marshals there, room full of judges, lawyers, bunch of suits, right? If I had to guess, there was at least 150, 200 people there. And here we had the Judicial Committee, these people that appoint judges. So I supplied them with the documents ahead of time, particularly my federal motion. In them documents, I had excerpts from the DCP&P records. I have had the New Jersey CARES.
Hold on.
Yep.
For our listeners who do not know, what does DCP&P stand for?
That is Department of Child Protection and Permanency. It's New Jersey's title for CPS, and that came to be shortly after they got into a lawsuit with, I believe it was Bruce Jackson, who was one of the largest lawsuits in U.S. history, that they found this kid eating out of a trash can in the driveway of Collingswood, New Jersey. And I think it was like a $10 or $20 million case settlement.
And I remember when that happened.
Yeah, him and there was like 3 or 4 other brothers that were in the mix. They actually investigated the house and found that there was bite marks on the drywall because the kids were so malnourished, they were trying to eat the walls. That and DCP&P, or DIFUS back then, were not even investigating the house properly. It was a foster predicament, foster home predicament, and it was something to do with they didn't factor in the medical reports. if I remember that case right. And this is where my case was similar, because I actually cited that in the district court case. Is that my family was, my son had there was an alleged neck and head shaking, that the mother allegedly shook him by the head. There was a bruise on the arm issue from him allegedly getting hit by the mother, and it caused a big bruise and a fingernail cut on the arm. This is in medical notes from the family doctor who diagnosed him at DCP&P's request. And then what they had done over there is, because the doctor didn't make a determination, the family doctor, if there was abuse or not, then DCP&P is required to, by policy, put him over to a regional diagnostic treatment center, such as New Jersey Cares. So Dr. Maria McColgan did the evaluation on my son. And, that was back in July of 2019. Immediately after the visit, his mom was put on a supervised visitation plan. That should be a red flag, right there. He still went with her, but she had to have somebody supervised within earshot at all times. So I was like, okay. And I was like, well, why did that happen? Oh, because he was scared. I'm like, well, he's been scared, this whole time. And I'm like, okay. So we were on judge number 2 at the time. Judge number 2 was getting transferred to criminal court. So he issued a case management conference in November of 2019 before the new judge. So my ex's attorney was pregnant. She had to switch an attorney. My attorney at the time experienced 1 or 2 deaths in the family, and I don't hold this against her, but she kind of lost connection with the case, I feel. And I was pro se a little while till I saved up more money to get a guy to take over. So there was an adjournment of this conference. My new attorney couldn't make the December 9th proceeding, so I went there, and the judge tried to start a whole full-blown trial hearing without my attorney there. No notice. There was no exhibit list exchange between parties. There was no argument for trial notebooks, briefs. Even the adjournment request by her lawyer indicated that the matter was requesting the postponement of a conference twice, right? So they postponed it 5 days later. My lawyer, I'm telling, and because I was on the phone with him, I said, I think he's starting a trial. He's like, no, that can't be. There's no paperwork indicating it was going to be a trial. I said, he goes, you had to hear something wrong. It's got to be a preliminary trial here. And he goes, so we go there a few days later, and the lawyer goes, watch. He goes, we're just going to talk about exhibits, witnesses, this child interview thing, and, they're going to schedule, like a trial date. I'm like, okay. We went in there. 10 minutes later, I was on the witness stand. I had no idea. What went on in the trial. There was the intent, the purpose of the conference was to set a trial date and determine a trial interview, right? That all got shot down. There was none of that happened. We had my lawyer wanted to review the new records and continue review, because my other lawyer only got a brief review of some of the records in there, right? My lawyer was denied. The other lawyer was granted full access to the case, which is an illegal ex parte communication to evidence. So the other lawyer got to review the whole shebang of records. So all through the case, in a nutshell, I get my butt handed to me. He barred my witnesses. The DCP&P records that were ordered to be into the matter were denied sua sponte by the judge, right? And I was reduced to hearsay. I got hit with over a $10,000 attorney fee bill to the judge or to the other side, right? So we're like, okay, we're going to appeal this. But when the judge wrote his memorandum of opinion of decision addressing the appeal, he stated on there that the matter was originally scheduled for a plenary hearing, a trial, in November of 2019 at the request of opposing counsel, because beyond her control, they had to postpone the matter. So the material evidence became a fact right there that fraud was introduced. It's fact, right? That the judge perverted a case management conference and blindsided me and my attorney with a plenary hearing. So the prejudice that stemmed from that was, I mean, we couldn't do nothing. It hindered our ability to introduce evidence, witnesses, the whole deal. So I go to the appellate division, and the appellate division contacts my lawyer, and I still have the email from this. The lawyer instructs my lawyer to remove the memorandum of decision because it's not part of the trial record. The memorandum of decision is a part of the trial record because it's directly from the court, and that has the evidence of fraud on it. So the judge in a proceeding claimed that my lawyer somehow knew before December 9th that this is going to be a trial, but there's no trial record. The problem with that is underneath New Jersey law in the Supreme Court, appellate review is supposed to be based upon the evidence credible evidence within the trial record. Well, my lawyer's notice of appearance was on December 2nd, and his first appearance before the judge was on December 13th. So where's the trial record of him informing my lawyer? There was no trial record of that. It was contrary to what my lawyer said. He wasn't aware it was going to be a plenary hearing. He said he wasn't aware it was going to be a final hearing. Totally contrary to that. So the appellate division based their finding off a spurious claim that my lawyer just somehow knew, even though there was no evidence of it. And
he somehow divined it, right?
Yes,
psychically.
Yes, and they hit me with another $4,300 fee at the appellate level, right? So that was in October of 2021. I waited over a year for them to compound the fraud and cover up. I mean, there was several points that we made on appeal, but notice was like a biggie. That provides proper jurisdiction. Without proper jurisdiction, orders are null and void, or it's nothing. And the judge is liable for money damages because he's in clear absence of his judicial capacity. So December 29th, I walk into the court for a notice. All the management was out, and they had me sit out in the hallway. So the secretary or whoever she was, the court staff, calls me back up to the window, and she says, "Here's the notice, and all these other papers are with it. Do you want them?" I said, "Yep." They handed me all the child protection records. That's when I found out that DCP&P excluded the entire forensic exam from NJ Cares that identified physical abuse from their records and rendered an improper status finding. And that's one of the issues on top of the notice issue that I'm currently fighting in the Third Circuit Court of Appeals. And just to give you an idea how corrupt this is, that the district court dismissed, and this is what I'm appealing, dismissed almost across the board with prejudice my case, not based on if I was right or wrong, but it gave a blanketed case law of immunity, basically saying that my alleged that the DCP&P acted a part and excluded forensic exams, blah, 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 is covered by immunity and you can't do nothing. Mm-hmm. And the alleged and he instead of him referring to it what I referred to it as fraud upon the court allegation with improper notice, the district court judge said, "Oh well, the allegation of Appellee Ostrowski mishandling his trial docket is covered by immunity under this case law." They never made the determination if I was provided proper notice or not, which establishes jurisdiction. So that's what I'm appealing in the Third Circuit right now. And what it is, just so everybody understands who is not involved in these unfortunate situations, is that, and I'll echo back to this a little bit with the attorneys and the judges not pointing fingers at each other. It's pro se litigants who are bringing these cases to the appellate division, to the Supreme Court, to the district courts, who are getting dismissed because the court judges and attorneys are demonstrating, committing criminal actions of fraud and really defrauding one person over another. I think it's a Chicago Law University review that has only 3% of pro se cases are heard in federal court, and that's something like 18,000 cases that are heard. So it ends up being like 180,000 filings, but only a slim number make it through. I would argue that the number that makes it through are people that are sitting in jail, that are doing writ of habeas corpus, and they're hearing those, or diversity of citizenship, where there's something being contested in like the state of New Jersey versus somebody else in Minnesota or something like that. But when it comes to a person filing a complaint against a state actor, like a judge or a CPS agent, it's just about routine that your case is going to get dismissed.
So, Dave, so our listeners, our viewers understand that this is not an isolated situation. The case that happened, what happened against you, the horrible actions that have happened against you, and you've done a remarkable, almost miraculous job of you and your son carrying him through this, and he's now doing miraculously well and competing in sports in high school on a state championship level. And I'm just so happy for you. But in addition to your case and the Collingswood case and so many others, Dave, you know intimate details about what happened to my family when we were in the state of New Jersey. And without revealing any of those details, would you say that what happened to my family, how my family was victimized by the state of New Jersey, was just as horrific as what you've gone through?
Our situation is most. It's such a tragedy that this is not a New Jersey issue. This is a national. This is the United States pandemic right here.
Yeah,
That's what it is. This is our crisis, because you know what's happening is we have the justice system, and we'll probably have to do a whole other podcast on this.
Let me interrupt you, because that's where I was going to go next. Is the two questions that I was going to ask you is, you and I talked off the air about putting together a series of as many as 7 episodes where you're going to go through in detail to our viewers and our listeners the problems that we're facing in this in the judicial system. Now, the Four Persons Incorporated is a licensed 501c3, and we cannot officially endorse a political candidate, but you can. And I'm giving you the opportunity, number one, to give us a brief outline of how you want to present this 7-part series, and number two, what you feel the American people need to know in terms of the differences between the two candidates and what they recognize about what's wrong with our judicial system and what needs to be done to fix it, especially because one of them is being particularly victimized by this corrupt judicial system. So if you would tackle those two questions one at a time.
Right now, if you're to look to a candidate, especially from what I've seen in the recent Instagram flicks of Trump. Trump is the guy. He started, back in his first presidency, of just starting to open the door on draining the swamp. Now that they drug him through, I don't know how many cases trying to indict him over stuff. Now we're starting to, they pissed the wrong guy off, I think. That he wants to, if I understood one of his latest speeches, he wants to implement judicial reform. This country needs that. And he wants to do it, if I understood him right, that cases that are based around discrimination must be heard. We need to take judicial discretion out of this and make these judges hear these matters and not dismiss them. Because what happens is we end up being a country of tolerance. And you know what happens with that is if somebody can keep on violating the rules, there's no accountability, and we just end up with problems. So right now, the political candidate that we want on our side is Trump. And look at Vivek Ramaswamy, I think if I said his name right, is in the background to him, wanting to eliminate most of the FBI, which, I've tried in my case to get the FBI to investigate, my issues. And as soon as I mention the word judge, that's when the phone goes dead. They'll literally hang up on you. They will cut you short and hang up on you. And a person thinks they have rights till they get involved into the system, and they find out not only how it's convoluted, but how hard it is to access justice. I know a number of fathers who try to get in the federal courts who can't get their foot in the door to get somebody to hear this issue. And you think that if you have a constitutional right and it's violated by the state, logically, it's the federal government who's supposed to be that mediator and protect you because it's a federally protected right? Due process. Mm-hmm. So if there's a due process violation, and the state shoves it up you, then you go to the federal court, right? They're going to fix it. That's what's perceived in the mind of many, that you can just go take this to a district judge and he's going to come down and correct it. Okay. That doesn't happen.
So when do you envision that you would be ready to go with episode 1 in this series? And what do you envision episode 1 will cover? Will that kind of just give us a broad outline of all of the problems that we need to look at and all of the areas where the court system has become adversarial against the American people?
Yes, I think we need to. In episode 1, this can be done in put together in a week ahead of time with a little bit of prep. We need to show that what's lacking in the family court system, which is large. It's larger than people think. Some of the inaccessibility of these federal courts Um, and just that, I want to make this clear that there is a clear attack on the nuclear family. This is talked about in major media, but the source of the problem is blacklisted by all major media, and that's the family court judges. These family court judges are, they're incentivized. We'll get to that in a episode. They're getting paid. They're getting funded.
So what you're alleging, I want to be very clear here. What you're alleging is none of this is accidental. This is not a group of people who are incompetent, tripping over their own feet. This is an orchestrated, predatory system that is preying on the American people and victimizing the American people. It is constructed to work like that, and it is there is no access, there is no accountability, and that's by design, right? That's not by accident, right?
Yeah, and just to put this in perspective, picture yourself at a family courtroom. You got a judge there. Most of these judges make 185 to say 200 grand a year. You've got the clerk. You've got a number of secretaries. There's 1 to 2 sheriff's officers sometimes within the courtroom that you're in, not counting, half a dozen in the hallway. You've got, often there's usually a supervisor or two floating around. That's a lot of money per day, and they're not handing out traffic tickets. So how are they getting paid? And
Right.
I think we'll get to some of that in one of the episodes, and why fathers. I'm not saying that mothers don't have problems in family court. They do, but it's typically fathers usually get the worst end of the stick. They don't get custody. If they do, it's 4 to 6 days a month. They're the ones that are usually cast out of the house, and the mom gets the house. They get alimony. The mothers usually get the alimony. They get everything, probably even half the fishing gear, with the premise laid at the feet of no fault divorce. So
Yeah.
if there's no fault divorce, then why is one person getting everything versus nothing?
Yeah. So no fault divorce doesn't mean no victim. So,
Right.
Dave, we're just about out of time. I want you to close with talking to our listeners and our viewers about some of the enterprises that you're involved in, and some of the things that you sell, and how people can get a hold of some of your products.
Well, I'm an arrow builder. I work with my hands. I do this for hunters and target archers. I have a website. It's vitallimits.com. I'm a single parent. If you need an arrow build for crossbow or vertical bows, I ship all over the U.S. And as far as father advocacy stuff, I belong to an organization called FACE in New Jersey. Fathers and Children's Equality, it stands for. If somebody needs help, it's a bunch of dads like me who get together every week or every other week, and try and help one another, as pro se litigants, navigate through this unfortunate court system.
All right, Dave, I want you to start working on that first episode, and hopefully we can circle back in about a week or two. And I think this information needs to be brought to the voters and to the American people to realize that there are a lot of important issues to look at and discuss. I think this is one of the ones that doesn't get as much coverage as it needs, because our court system is in a crisis, and this isn't just family court. I mean, even in New Jersey, even the traffic courts in New Jersey are absolutely corrupt, and they're not the only ones. And it's all facets of legal system that denies rights to citizens, and right now it's getting more and more difficult for victims to even, as you pointed out, even have their cases heard. And it just throws the entire sense of justice that our country was founded on its ears. So, Dave, God bless you. Thank you for coming on, and I look forward to seeing you in about a week or a couple of weeks to kick off this series. I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be great.
Thank you, John.
God bless you.
God bless you too.